Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's been
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. This is it. This is The Dark Knight. I think this might be the first time I've had to actually use The Dark Knight as a subject on a podcast. So let's see how this goes.
Really? That's surprising. I mean,
I've talked about The Dark Knight Rises many times, Batman vs. Superman many times. We've done the first two Tim Burton movies now, but never The Dark Knight.
Yeah, we've led up to this point. The interesting thing I think about this is that we, through the years, have talked about this movie so many times to reference how other movies have done it compared to this. It almost seems like a benchmark movie, but it's like a meter stick, if you will. But it also seems unfair to call it that. Because it's so stellar in its own regard. So it's something I've been waiting for this episode for a while.
Mm-hmm. I've been dreading it.
Getting around. I've been waiting for it and dreading it because I feel like we love it so much that we're just going to, yeah, that part was cool.
Yeah. This is my fear. So,
yeah.
But I think that's always why I've avoided it, because I'm just like, I just like it. Like, I think that there's cool things to talk about like
yes.
Joker, and I do like obviously have some things where I'm like, oh, like I'd like to address this complaint about the movie, but overall, I'm not really like, oh yeah, I see what people think about this not being that good. No, I love the movie. It's like my second favorite movie ever.
Yeah, it's one of the things that. What would be the first?
Oh, North by Northwest. We talked about it during the Superman Returns.
Yeah, that was just Superman Returns on North by Northwest. Yeah. I don't dare rank my favorite movies of all time, but if I were to, this would definitely be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Top 5, top 3, 100%. It's just so good. There's just one minor little issue. Well, actually a few, like one or two, but overall, this movie, there's just so many points about this movie that make it just so incredible.
Yeah, I love it. Let's see here. So everyone knows the story of Dark Knight, right? Like Batman Begins happened, and Batman's still kicking around, and because he did what he did in Batman Begins and has actually made some headway on the mob, the Joker is able to emerge. And that does not work for Batman, because at least the mob have like their own set of morals and like rules to live by.
Yeah.
That's not the Joker's thing. He's all about anarchy, and I think the best way to say it is a force of nature. And I get that, like, I think people, I don't blame them, feel like this is the best way to do Joker, because he really is that force of nature that you're not going to be able to reason with or stop. Like, you're going to compromise yourself to get whatever you need to get done, but you're not like changing the Joker's mind. You're not going to just like, I mean, that's actually one of the things I want to talk about. Like, it seems like he actually has a death wish. So like if we're talking about a Batman villain, that still would be the compromise for him, is killing the Joker, which is kind of what it seems like the Joker is egging him on to do the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what makes him so interesting. So when you give him this backstory and you explain away the whole, like, you know, it is not a nervous thing. It's actually just this deep-seated like mental issue he has. It becomes less of a like, oh my goodness, how do we stop him? And more of like, can we please just get this person some help? Yes, I'm obviously referencing 2019's Joker, but like, I think anytime you try to give too much of a backstory to the Joker, I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm saying the reason this performance endures is because it's based around the fact that like, it doesn't matter who he is, because he's going to do what he wants, and that's on you to figure out how to react to it.
I absolutely agree. I think one of the strengths, the central strengths of the character, the Joker, is that the backstory is very inconsistent, and I love how it's echoed within this movie. How there's so many backstories, but none of them are real. They're all like, oh, did this actually happen? Whether or not, whatever, it is what it is. The idea that he's just this person that is not motivated by anything other than pure pure like
Yeah,
I want to do
it's
this. That's
chaos.
it. It's
Yeah,
pure chaos. There's no reasoning to it. At least with the mob, it's just like, oh, okay, it's about money. If they're gonna do things that maintain their profitability and nothing beyond that. That's why there's like the amazing scene with the meeting with Lau and the money laundering and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you would think like all these gangsters from like different worlds, like it just go. I mean, sorry, it goes to show that there's no sense in a war. There's like that whole let's figure this out, street code, whatever it is. You're like, but we have to maintain profitability. Otherwise, why are we doing this?
yeah, and I think that's
Yeah,
what Alfred says is like you created a world where now
yeah,
like you see it where the Chechnyan, I think is his name, I don't remember. You know, the one who's like, my dogs are hungry. Like
yeah,
that guy is like, well, I feel like we should listen to this clown because like
yeah.
he's making it seem like he can help us keep making money,
Hmm.
and all we're doing is complaining about the inability to do it. So
Right.
like let's listen to this news person. And that I just feel like the movie does a great job of like no matter what thing you pull at,
Hmm.
it is so deeply rooted in the point of the movie. Like
Yes.
there's, I mean, I always, well, I'll get to that part, but like I really like that. And I think when you were talking about the inconsistent backstories, I think after I think I saw it like 8 times in theaters, but like after the second time in theaters, I was like, oh, he's doing bits. And I think that's funny. Like because every time he tells a backstory, it's a punchline. Like he's that's his stand up is like, if it, so it's incorporating that backstory from the Killing Joke that he was a
Mhm.
stand-up or whatever. And I don't think they're saying this person or this version of the Joker is a stand-up, but it is still like it's kind of what I like about Nolan and how he incorporates the stuff from the comics, but it still feels like organic to Nolan's sensibilities. Like
Correct.
even in Dark Knight Rises, which I don't think we are doing, we might end up doing it, but like
Yep.
the way he did Bane, I was like, that's cool. It's you still had the idea of like he's got this mask, and instead of it gives him power, it's what's suppressing his power. And then
Mhm.
they have that cool moment where Batman like undoes the gas, and that's when you see him like knock a column down with one
Mhm.
punch, and you're like, oh, like he still incorporated that thing of like the gas does something to him and affects him. Or they even had the version of the Lazarus pit in
Mhm.
that. And in this you're still able to incorporate like, oh, like here's the part of the Killing Joke everyone likes where he has like the whole my life story is multiple choice, but also you can incorporate the jokes of a
Mhm.
Joker. It's I just think it's really well done that way.
Yeah.
And you really get to flesh out Batman's no kill rule. It because
Mhm.
everyone's telling him like, well, there's two things you could do. You could unmask yourself, or why don't you just fucking kill this guy?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I can't. It goes against my code. And so you're pushing him to do something, and the something is accepting the deaths of people he didn't even kill.
Mhm. Yeah. It's such a amazing movie in many regards because you start to think of the different themes of movie and how they get applied and all this kind of stuff. This has elements of superhero countdown, like psychological. There's just so many layers to this movie, and it's written in such a beautiful way that anytime you start to pull at something, it's like, no, but wait, here's how it connects to something else. It's
Mm-hmm.
like this really beautifully woven sweater that's so tight knit that it's flawless in design and execution
I
from
think,
every.
yeah, I think what people like to say is like, oh, the Joker stuff is all luck, and I'm like, okay, I
I
don't like
don't agree with
if
that,
that's a complaint for you, I can't argue against that. But it's also kind of like, who cares? Like,
but I feel like that would be a complaint of most movies then, if that was
That's
the
that is what I was getting at. It's like, okay, then I don't know, watch documentaries then.
Yeah.
Like the whole point is you're watching, like, or I guess I should say a Nolan film is all about this, like he's all about time and like clockwork and stuff. I mean, I know that's more Del Toro, but like it is like everything fits together in a very specific, intricate way.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're just a Batman fan, I still don't really get that complaint, because then hopefully that means you read the comics, and a lot of the comics is like just this has to happen so the story can keep going.
Mhm.
And so at least you get a character like Joker where, yes, it is like it is very lucky that he's able to position that guy exactly in a way so that when the bus bursts through, that guy dies or at
Mhm.
least gets incapacitated.
Yep.
And that he's able to get away here, or that the actions of the cops lead him right where he needs to be so he can blow up the precinct. It's like I don't really have a problem with that being the case, because
Yep.
I think what he's trying to do is cause chaos, but he obviously does have a plan of
Yeah.
how he's going to get that done.
Exactly. It's just the idea of him being purely chaos and taking that to a very, very, very literal translation too far, and resulting to the idea of like, oh, he succeeds because of luck. I'm like, no, he's got his plan. He has his
It's like
rant
he
to
could have used that plan to amass a lot of money, but really all he's
yes,
doing is planning to fuck everything up. That is his
yes,
plan.
that's
He wants to
exactly
screw
it. He's
things up.
that, and that's what he was saying. It's just like in his rant towards Harvey Dent in the hospital scene. He's like, oh, the mayor has plans. This Batman has plans. Gordon has plans. You had plans. Look where that got you.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea, like, what he doesn't reveal there, the cherry picking in that dialogue is like, I've got a plan too, but my plan is just not motivated the same way yours is. My plan is just to fuck up everything.
Yeah.
And everything like that. The one thing I will say, the luck component of his plan, and this is where we really have to talk, the interesting thing about the death wish thing that I want to explore a little bit with you. The only scene that I think that really, really comes into play is like where Two-Face is like does the coin in the hospital scene where he does bank everything on the 50-50 aspect of whether or not he's going to do that, and also whether or not Harvey's going to go to that conclusion of, okay, I'm going to actually use the coin to make the decision. Like whether or not he banks everything on being successful with that rant of that whole conniving monologue thing. He does bank a lot on that one scene.
No, actually, he disables the gun. So even though he's putting it up to his head, he's disabled it.
Oh, right, because
even if he pulled the
close up.
trigger, it would have been like that and cocked the hammer. It wouldn't have shot him.
Right, because he puts
And what I'm saying is
thumb on the thing. Yeah,
he is begging Batman to kill him. I don't know that he's begging anyone else to kill him.
that's correct. No, you're right. I forgot about that one. Someone on Reddit pointed out that like he, even though he does put that thing, he has his thumb over where the hammer would go. So like, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a very small and subtle thing about that one scene that's so important. And rewatching that scene is so beautiful because like even he has his own makeup on his hands from applying the thing, and it's just such a beautiful little detail.
Both Harvey and Joker aren't really leaving anything up to chance, as in those senses. Like they have these plans.
Yeah.
And maybe you think Joker's plan is just very conveniently coming together, but it is a plan. It's just, as we said, the plan is to fuck everyone else up. It's not a plan to be like, and then I'll take over the world. It's just, well, now everyone is shit. So it all doesn't matter. It's all chaos.
Yeah.
Whereas Harvey Dent, he's got the two-sided coin. So he's never like, oh, I'm really putting this to chance. It's like, yeah, there you go. It's what I want it to be.
Right.
And so, I think that's a big complaint I always hear. I don't think we've done a good job of defending it. I just feel like I've stated my case of why it doesn't bother me. Is that like, it's, if you want to say it's convenient, it is, but also think about like everything else that you get to examine along the way. So if you're gonna let the convenience of that get in the way, then I can't really help you in terms of enjoying the film.
Yeah. I mean, sure, people can definitely criticize it being like, oh well, like it was pure luck that he knew what time Batman would be in the interrogation room with him, to be able to tell him, oh, you have 5 minutes to get to Harvey or Rachel or whatever. Like you could say all those different things, but like you're really, I think, really starting to nitpick at every single thing. And I think, to me, when people are doing that to this movie in particular, it goes to show the strength of this movie, because really people are, I feel, really stretching and reaching for those criticisms.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To be like, oh, nothing can be perfect, so here's something I'm trying to pull out of not thin air, which is a valid criticism, but one that pales in comparison to how well this whole
Everything
thing is
else works. Yeah.
It feels like to me, and the watch making aspect of Nolan's films is such a beautiful analogy here, because what I feel like those people are saying is, listen, I just don't like the way the watch looks. For whatever reason, and they're like, oh, I don't like this, the leather strap of the, like, it's a small, very,
it feels like they're saying it works too well.
Yeah,
This works almost too well.
It's just like it's too perfect, and that makes me feel uncomfortable in some capacity, and I don't like that. I'm like, there's one thing about this movie that is a giant flaw to me, and that's always the scene where the Joker goes and invades the fundraising party.
Yeah.
The only
and he throws Rachel out the window.
He throws Rachel out the window, and he doesn't do anything or go back, and then the scene just ends. That's the only flaw of the movie.
I would say that speaks to a greater issue I found this time watching, is I'm like, there's some really harsh cuts in this movie. Like, it's just, I feel like the cuts are awkward sometimes. Yes. That is a big one where you're like, I mean, he still is now with a bunch of people that he could terrorize. It seems like a weird way to end it, like on that joke of like, let's never do that again. And it's like, I mean, you got to get back up there, man. Like but and I think maybe that even ties into what people are talking about, of that, like, yeah, that's just like, do you really believe that the Joker is like, no, I made my point, I'm out, bye everybody?
No one believes that. Nobody believes that this Joker does that. It's not that. Don't get me wrong, he randomly kills people, but he does it in a purposeful way.
Here's something I would also say. This is not a complaint about the movie. This is something that genuinely chilled me to my core. And I noticed it the first time I saw the movie. Most of the Joker's kills are black people.
Yeah.
I'm like I noticed that right away. It made me like uncomfortable anytime he entered a scene. I'm like, which black person he's gonna kill now? Like, there's so many times where it's just like a black cop that's like, hey, stop that, and then he comes out and shoots them dead, or Gamble, or like, just there's a lot of black people getting killed by Joker, and obviously, yes, he kills other people. It's just it's just like, oh, like they really show him killing black people on screen.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that, and I don't like it. It does make me feel very uncomfortable, because you're absolutely right. The majority of his
on-screen kills,
cold-hearted on-screen death kills, is on black people, and that is a very uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, because like this doesn't really prove the point. It was just a funny anecdote I heard. So Michael Jai White, who played Spawn, and he plays Gamble in this. He was saying, like, when he was on set, like during that scene where Gamble gets cut open, he was like, okay, so like obviously, do you want it to be that like Joker has entered and we've only been here for like 15 minutes, or have we been here for like hours and we're kind of just chill? And he was like, Christopher Nolan was like, no, I didn't think about it. What do you think? And he was like, okay, cool. And then he was like, also, like, all these people are British, so do you want, like, I guess he must have filmed that scene first. He's like, so do you want me to be British, or should they be American? He's like, another thing I just didn't really think about. And I'm like, interesting. He's got, I feel like that's like a Sherlock thing of like, there's these details he cares about, and then there's like these almost everyday things you would think about that he just, like how apparently Sherlock doesn't know that the Earth revolves around the sun. He's like, that doesn't really help me deduce anything. Like, I don't really care about that. I didn't know that. And
it
it's
doesn't
like
directly
Christopher
help
Nolan
me in
being
the
like,
situation.
you being here an hour or 15 minutes does not matter to me. Like, that's not the point of this scene.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
also if they're British and you're American, I don't care. I'll
Well,
probably dub it later.
it's yeah. I think to open up that discussion, because that's an interesting discussion that should be addressed. I don't think it's the idea that Joker is racist.
No,
Because
that had nothing to do with Joker. That just had
yeah,
to do with I don't know how intentional stuff like that is for Christopher Nolan, who also wasn't
yeah.
really thinking about those types of details. He's
I
thinking
think
about the greater point to his movie.
yeah. I think the and this is where we start discussing Nolan as a filmmaker more than the actual movie itself. I think it's very, very clear that Nolan has a better grasp of the white narrative and white storytelling, and not that good of a grasp from a storytelling perspective from the people of color standpoint. Now, the Tenet thing, I say that because I haven't seen
I
Tenet.
wouldn't say white storytelling. I don't
Right.
think he's a very human storyteller. Because what I'm worried about you saying there is there's a level of like expert execution which you're now associating with white, which isn't real.
No.
That's not a thing. I think what he is he's a very methodical person,
Yes.
but he's not very like. There's moments of genuine like catharsis, and like I love the moment where Commissioner Gordon gets to come back and be like, you know what, this time I saved him. That's a very nice emotional moment, but not from like that's not really what Nolan is interested in. I think he does that. That's a scene I can think of, and I do think that Inception is more focused on an emotional ending because that's all about giving this man closure about how he feels about his father, and that is an emotional resolution. But I don't think that is Nolan's thing.
Right.
On the whole, I think he's just a very mechanical filmmaker, which I want to avoid any kind of white, black, anything like that.
Well,
he's a mechanical.
Yeah.
I feel like he's removed from that. I don't think that's what he's thinking about.
Right.
And so something like Dunkirk, I feel like, oh, that is him doing exactly what he wants to do. It's told so that you are just living the action beats of every story ever, and you never have to get too emotional about anything.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack on what I was starting to, because obviously I work out my thoughts out loud.
Yeah.
For the audience listening and all that kind of stuff. And because we're talking about the subject of race, the idea that I was going down there is that I don't think Nolan, in these films in particular, is interested in telling a story about race.
No, he's not.
And that's why those things about Gamble weren't thought of. But Gamble was, Michael J. White was being like, hey, this is my attention to this detail. This is something that matters to me. I think that I just think it's so methodical that it just didn't occur to him. As I was like, yeah, these things were just things that just flew over his head. To keep like, not to say that this was the case, but like to keep count of how many people Joker kills on screen and what race they are and all that kind of stuff, or if any of them are women, or like, I don't think he was interested in that aspect of it, because to justify everything we're talking about with this Joker, he's just pure chaos. So he doesn't see a black cop. He sees a cop. He just like, this is it. I'm just going to go randomly. And then, but like what we see on camera is a higher percentage of that aspect. So yeah, it is uncomfortable, but not a race related thing.
Yeah.
So I will say that. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, no, but to say that he's very mechanical, I would say is a very, very, very nice way to put Nolan as a director.
He's not. It's not a warmth to his overall. That's not what you come away with. It's very like sterilized, I would say.
Yeah. So he really leans on the actors to give that emotional side of things, to tell that. And I mean, what a great performances by everyone. in this in the cast. The
It
one,
was almost Busta Rhymes, by the way. The gamble role.
oh yeah,
I remember Busta Rhymes being like, I fucking lost out to. It was, I don't know if you remember the rapper David Banner. It was like David Banner, Busta Rhymes, and Michael Jai White were like up there, and then obviously Michael Jai White got it.
right.
And I'm like, I think I would have liked Busta Rhymes. I feel like he's just so charismatic. And I'm not saying Michael Jai White did a bad job. He did a great job considering he's not like, you feel that tension between him and Joker. Like he's able to not just come off as like some guy that Joker picked on. Like it is a back and forth. I feel like he did a good job. I'm just like, but imagine if it was Busta Rhymes. That would have been great.
Yeah, it would have been great. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Other
Nothing.
than
It's just a
I would
thing
have
that
liked
almost
that,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think the other big complaint people have is that Two-Face feels rushed. And I just feel like that is missing the point of the movie.
Yeah,
Because my whole thing is the whole point is Two-Face.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's about Batman's need to not do this anymore, but that was always the case because that's what Batman Begins is about as well. And it's
Yes.
certainly what Dark Knight Rises is about. But this movie is, Batman found the person he thinks will be able to take over for him, not as Batman, but as a actual like legal way of getting rid of crime. And so the whole point is this ticking time bomb of can they avoid the full Two-Face thing happening? And no, they can't because Joker is unstoppable. But like that's what he says. You think I was gonna leave this like down to this stupid fairy thing? Of course not. Like I've got Harvey Dent, the person you thought was gonna save the day. He's going off now and murdering people. Like I did it. I fucked you over. And to that extent, I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I could. This is one thing, the way that Two-Face has aged, like the visual of it, I'm like, I don't know that I would want to watch a whole movie of this Two-Face. I feel like you got the best out of it that you could. He was this man that everyone was always worried about. He was always Two-Faced. You see the splits throughout the movie. It's just, unless you're telling me you wanted 2.5 hours of that fucked up face thing, but you're still getting all the beats of Two-Face throughout the whole thing. And the whole idea is, yeah, he's scarred now, but that's not when he changes into Two-Face. That is him just at the end of his rope, and he's like, all right, fuck it, like I'm done playing nice. But you are getting that vacillation between good and evil the whole time. Like that, his first scene is, hey guys, I'm here, like nice to see you, and then you pulled a gun on me, I'm gonna punch you out, and like that's all out the door now. Like it is consistently throughout the movie which side of him is gonna win over.
Correct. For those people that criticize not enough Two-Face, I feel like that it's only a criticism launched towards the visual effect of it and the murder rate.
Yeah, but again, that's why I said it's missing the point.
It is missing the point because you're right. He's very consistently Two-Faced throughout the whole thing, and consistently with the theme of escalation, his Two-Face becomes more and more Two-Face. So the whole point of his visual transformation to Two-Face at that point is a wonderful, wonderful like filmmaking thing. Because like, look back to the scene where Jim Gordon's shot by the Joker and all that kind of, or like shot by the Joker with that bait and switch kind of thing. How he takes the Arkham patient with
Thomas Schiff.
Yeah, Schiff.
David Dastmalchian, who is now in Suicide Squad and Ant-Man.
Polka Dot Man. Taking him and how like that scene goes, like, okay, he's already switched. He's already using the coin to interrogate him. He's Two-Face at that point. He is.
That's the thing. I mean, yes, he has the nickname Two-Face, but like nobody who interacts with him other than Batman, and that's what I like, is that the only person who's kind of in the dark about how Two-Face is Bruce Wayne Batman, because he's so blinded by the like white knight aspect of him that he doesn't see that everyone basically is like, well, I don't know, man, like he's not really like not really all there. Like he's he's not completely above board, and like
Yeah,
he's just like no, he's good, I like him. This is
yeah.
gonna go. This is gonna go well.
You're really you hit the nail on the head with that, because the only one that's really sold by that lie is really um it really is Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
That really believes that, because he really ignores a
Well, he
lot of,
wants to believe, like he needs it
yeah,
to be true.
he ignores a lot of stuff to make it true in his head
Hmm.
too. Like he there's evidence throughout the whole movie that he's like really pushing, really like falling off. But to be fair, this is one of those situations where Bruce is doing his role of trying to preserve him as much as possible. Like to be like, hey, this is a guy, a schizophrenic guy from Arkham. How
Yeah.
much information do you think you're actually going to get out of him? And he immediately, like with that reasoning, stops with the interrogation of the polka dot man. I'm just gonna, because I can't pronounce his name. But so he's trying to pull him back. He's trying to pull him back, but unfortunately, he just, once the Rachel thing happened, it was just
Yeah, I mean this is also the
yeah.
killing joke aspect, right? Like everyone just needs one bad day. This is
Yes.
not only Gordon and Batman's one bad day, it's Harvey Dent's. And so I just feel like, to say there's, or like I've heard people be like, I would just cut the Two-Face stuff and leave it for another movie. I'm like, no, then you really are missing the
You're
point
missing the point.
of that character. The
Yeah.
whole point is he represents
Yep.
the loss. Like he is the true, like there's moments where like you said, that amazing like bait and switch where you think that Gordon's dead, and then he
Mhm.
shows up again to arrest Joker, but really it's like, but Joker already accounted for that. Like that was already, like he was like, great, you're still alive, but I'm still doing exactly what I want to be doing right now, which is getting into the heart of where I need to be and blowing this up. Like it was like, there's just so many times where you're just like, oh my goodness, what a gut punch. Like he, like, you can't stop the Joker. You're not gonna beat him.
Mhm.
And so he says, like, yeah, fine, put me in Arkham in a padded cell. You're gonna lose because this was always down to Harvey Dent and his like inability to be even killed. He's
Mhm.
like, he was gonna be the easiest one of you guys to tip over into the bad side. And and so like, in addition to everyone like compromising themselves, like Batman basically doing all the surveillance and
Mhm.
having even like Lucius Fox be like, all right, I quit. Like you've gone too far this time. And
Yep.
Gordon is obviously like, oh, I guess we can just lie about this and like do whatever. Like it's also just that like the one person you thought was actually going to stand up to all of this is the one guy that like, not only did he not stand up to what I was doing, he joined me. Like he joined me in my like reign of terror, and now he's dead, and you guys have to deal with that now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's so much about this movie that's fantastic, because the amount of, well, I think one of the things that I love about this is you get the internal workings of how public narrative is spun. It's the idea of like how Batman in the final scenes is like, no, you can put this all on me, maintain his good image and all that kind of stuff. And that's the propaganda behind it all, right? It's just like, no,
Mm-hmm.
cover up this detail, only tell the good side of everything, like that. We'll justify whatever happens that way, right? It's There's a lot of creative storytelling here to the public narrative, but what we don't see is that the public's perspective of that until The Dark Knight Rises, right? So it's one of those things that's just really wonderfully done. To see it at, this is the planning stage of this and setting up even the bigger one, like how Nolan sets up the sequels for this is just absolutely beautiful, because even in Batman Begins, you're like, okay, well, he's talking about escalation and
Mm-hmm.
like, giving the example of like guns and then SMGs or whatever, and then now to visually show it in this, and then the next one to be like, okay, it's all about propaganda, basically what we tell the public, the narrative, and then that's exactly what we see with Bane being like, no, I'm gonna tell the propaganda, and then Batman, like, not that he interacts with the public, but the representation of the truth. It's this
Yeah.
really fantastic setup of all those kind of things.
And I do like, as you said, that if we're talking about escalation, and if you're trying to make a case for just put Two-Face in the next movie, is like, where do you go from there? The
Yeah.
escalation is pretty much the height of that is when he genuinely threatens to kill Commissioner Gordon's son. Like, what act is he gonna do beyond that that makes you be like, oh, I guess now I feel like he's really a bad guy. Like he went to the height of what he was gonna do.
Yeah.
There's there's
For all
nothing really you can do with Two-Face for a full movie if you're taking this escalation thing seriously.
I agree. It's Two-Face serves the purpose in this movie, and what I would ask those people is if he got a standalone, how would that go? How would he service the idea of escalation without the idea of chaos, counterbalancing that? It's like order and chaos, and like it's where do you go from that? Like if you put him in 3, how does he fit in? It would be the same degree of a cameo, I would imagine, like Jonathan Crane as Scarecrow being the judge. Like that would be a fitting kind of cameo of Two-Face being
Yeah,
there.
but it's
That
not the Two-Face movie then. Like, as you're pointing out, I know that's your point,
exactly.
is that like there's nothing really to do with him after this movie, and I'm not.
Yep.
I
No,
I
I'm
feel
great.
like he's yeah. No, I
Yeah,
feel
no,
like
I'm
that's the
great with you.
point.
Yeah, I'm just saying to the audience of like those people. I've always asked people that give me that criticism of this movie. I'm like, what would you do with him in 3 then? Like, how would he service 3? Like, assuming that 3 is still written the exact same way, he would
Well,
just
I mean, we probably I I never believe this, but I've heard it from many sources that, like, yes, Heath Ledger's death did change the course of how they did the third movie. So I don't know.
that doesn't surprise me.
There is. I just feel like that doesn't feel like a Nolan thing though. Like, let's
It,
continue the Joker stuff. Like,
yeah,
he said what he needed to say with the Joker. I'm not saying he never comes back, but to like continue on, I feel like you're that yes, people will like that performance again, but you're missing the point again of his Joker. His Joker is a force of nature. So like there's nowhere to go from there either with Joker unless you're just like, hey, he's still here fucking things up. And it's like, yeah, that's fun, but like are we getting it? Like, are we getting anywhere? And I always felt like, yes, there was some point to the end of Batman. Like, that's how he did it. He ended Bruce Wayne as Batman.
I
You
just
can't
feel
really do that if you introduce Joker again, because that Joker's idea is we're going to do this forever.
I agree. I think one of the biggest things is probably it might have changed the course, but whether or not it would have gotten to that decision anyways is what I would always say to people. Because if you put Joker in the third one, let's assume you everything plays out the exact same way that Bane plays out. So he releases everyone from Arkham. So the Darkest Night storyline of storytelling. Where now Batman has to deal with all the Arkham release people from the people locked up by the Dent Act, but now Joker on top of everything. And Joker being the Joker now is more of a threat than Bane is, or an equal threat.
But
So
is he? Because that's already the chaos. Like, the chaos is all those people now out on the street and the truth being told about Harvey Dent. What are you like? That doesn't give Joker anything to do, because
it doesn't give him anything to
we're
do.
already seeing like his whole thing is exposing hypocrisy
Yep.
and causing chaos. But like,
Exactly. And at
Bane
that point,
already did that at that point
he
that
would
you
just be like in yeah he Bane. You're absolutely right. Bane already did that, so it would be boiled down to the Joker just having a cameo at best.
yeah,
In
people said he might have been the judge. Like, it's the same thing he said. But like, I just don't
I don't
feel
see how that
like.
would work from Nolan's standpoint because that would be so inconsistent. I think the only thing that would make sense is Two-Face being the judge as opposed to Scarecrow. But even then, with Two-Face being the judge, it's less like, oh, Nolan was like, oh, I decided to kill him, so here's why I
Mhm.
use Scarecrow instead. Like that would have been the only thing that would have made
Well, I
sense.
mean, it makes sense to me if the Joker, because realistically, it doesn't matter. The judge is irrelevant. It's
Correct.
how do you want to die? Because
Yes.
either we're gonna make you walk for a bit, or we'll just shoot you right away.
Yep.
The point is that is a Joker thing to do. Like,
Yep.
you think you've got an option, but really he's in control the whole time. So
Correct.
I would disagree that it wouldn't make sense for Joker to be the judge in that, because, as we know, that's not a real court of law. It is just
Mhm.
a slap in the face before they kill you.
Yes, 100%. It's not that it wouldn't make sense, but it's just like it would be boiled down to that degree of the role. It'd be like, oh, okay,
Well, yeah,
cool. Which
that's why I'm
I
saying I don't know why everyone's like pushing like, oh, he would have been in the third movie, and
yeah,
but like to what degree? Like
yeah,
you can't. I don't think Joker works the way that Nolan has him as like the main villain, and I feel like
right.
yes, he's the main force of evil in this movie, but the movie is about Batman's need to find a way, because that's why it starts with those copycats and the hockey pads.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't want this. I want a Harvey Dent who is
Mhm.
actually going to be able to lawfully get rid of this crime and corruption. And
Correct.
so like that is the point of that Batman, and like because I do still believe that he is centering Bruce Wayne Batman in these three films. And
Mhm.
so this is what he's dealing with in this movie. It's like, okay, I started the symbol. The symbol isn't really working the way I want it to. Oh, here's Harvey Dent. I would love for this to be what my symbol is actually inspiring. And
Mhm.
then it's Joker who's ruining that. But again, I would still argue that Harvey Dent was never going to work out for him. Um,
Yeah.
it's just Joker's pushing the needle a bit more. But I don't think it works if you're like, and now Joker has like this plot to even Bane's plot. Like that's not really a Joker thing. A Joker
No.
thing is just like, I just want chaos. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to prove a point
Bane's thing
beyond
is just a
like,
plan. It's
yeah.
just a like he's got a plan, and Joker.
Well, he's
If
trying to follow through with what Ra's al Ghul wanted to do, which is destroy
exactly.
Gotham, which
So,
isn't Joker's thing. Joker said, I just want to keep doing this with you forever.
yeah, it's just Joker's just motivated to just have fun, and his version of fun is just a dance with Batman
Hmm.
in the pale moonlight.
Exactly.
But it just the only extent of what Joker would be able to do is you'd be seeing a lot of clips in service of Joker going chaotic during the whole like, oh, we're in a lockdown state for Gotham. That's the only thing you get. You get like visuals of everything going crazy, everything escalating. You get to add to that level of tension of that countdown aspect of the bomb in 3, but there's
But
nothing
it doesn't
that
work
Joker
because
does.
Batman's got his back broken and he's in a different country.
Absolutely, it doesn't work. All it works is, oh, it's a cameo. And to be perfectly honest, I think this version of the Joker, being so well written, being so well done, deserves more than just a little bit of a cameo. And the exit, that what we have with this Joker, the final scenes, it makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
It's the perfect way to go. I'm content with it. I don't need more because this is so perfect the way
Yeah.
it is.
And I guess, yeah, him dying forces you to do the story that they did in 3, but I
Hmm.
just feel like wait a bit before you bring him back.
Yeah.
Uh, but what do I know? I don't, I like it. I find it weird that like it is confirmed that by many sources that, yeah, that really bummed Nolan out and he couldn't do the story he wanted to do. But it just doesn't seem really like what he was building towards, which
Right.
is like a more Joker centric movie than we already got.
Yeah. I feel like that would it doesn't track to me. That idea of Heath Ledger's death changed the trajectory for what he had planned for the third one.
Like I can
I
see
don't.
him being like, I don't really want to do these anymore because like that will just remind me of Heath. But I don't really see the whole like, oh man, this really changes what I was going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see that because I don't see Nolan as being like a Kevin Foggy kind of filmmaker from the degree of like, here's my plans for an entire trilogy, and here's how Joker is going to be in the third one. I don't think he's the type of guy that's like that. I think he's the type of filmmaker that's like, I need this movie to be perfect in its own regard, and then I need to think about the concept of the idea of what I want to explore in the next one. And he does that. Like I say, like in the first one, it begins like there's a scene about escalation that sets up the entire second movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like he has one thing that sets up the entire second movie, and then this one the exact same thing. It's the idea of spinning up the public narrative and then that escalating into the third one where it's like, okay, well, Joker's small scale chaos, but this is the League of Assassins or League of Shadows. This is large scale stuff for what they wanted to do. So yeah, like it's that's how I feel about that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Joker stuff. I mean, obviously, I love the performance every time. I hate when people are like, he wouldn't have won if he was not dead. I'm like,
I disagree with that.
I think
we
that
have to really get into a breakdown with the performances of that year's nominees
yeah,
to
I don't
really,
remember
really
the
do
nominees,
that
but I
justice.
just feel like he disappeared into the role. Like I don't. I think that is good acting regardless. So if you want to say, oh, there's no way they would have given it to a comic book character, sure, but it's not. I can accept that argument. Like it's the fact that he died that they were like fine with giving it to a comic book performance, but I feel like you're ignoring the fact that he did a undoubtedly great job in that role. If you think like, oh, it's just because he died.
Yeah, and to have so many iterations of the Joker be so well done already, and have so
Well,
many
I would say
ideas.
two in terms of as much as the Oscars are concerned. I feel like
Oh yeah,
everyone would have like Cesar Romero in the back of their mind. I was like, oh, that's the Adam West Batman
yep,
Joker, and then you obviously have Jack Nicholson.
yep.
I don't know that many of them would be like, oh, but Mark Hamill was great in the animated series. I don't think that's something they would consider.
From an Oscar standpoint, no, not from an Academy Award
Well, I'm
standpoint.
just thinking about the people who make up the Academy. So like it's not like,
Exactly.
oh, that was TV, it doesn't count. I'm thinking of like how old they are and like what they would put importance on.
Oh, absolutely. If we're strictly talking about the filmmakers and the Academy side of things, 100%, it doesn't weigh in. But I'm just talking about purely iterations of the Joker, fans of Batman, having so many different versions of the Joker exist in both live and animated form already. That he's had such a big task to do here, specifically
I
within a
just feel
Nolan
like
movie.
I mean, I think you're right. There were different versions. I don't know that people recognize many more than the two I mentioned.
Well, regardless of whether or not that was the case,
But
what
it's to your point though, so
it
that
is,
it is important. It's important
it's important to the point, I suppose.
establish it. It's
Right.
important to establish that like
Mhm.
what he was really fighting against was everyone was like, well, Jack Nicholson already did it. It's not that
Correct.
they were like, because your point, if your point is there's a bunch of different ones, then he would just be another one in that list of
Yes.
iterations of Jokers. It's to the point where now people aren't like, oh man, like yeah, they can rag on Jared Leto, but like he's just one in another line of Jokers at that point. It
Right.
doesn't really there's not much writing on it. So that's why I'm trying to like make it clear that there was probably only two people thought of, which makes it that more important if you're stepping into that arena than if you're stepping into like a crowded pool already.
To be fair, I think now, and I think because of Ledger's performance, it has become that point of comparison now. Like Leto is definitely compared to Ledger's performance. Their portrayals of the Joker, for sure, they are.
I don't know that they are. I think people are just like that was bad. And I
Yes,
think people don't like Leto,
but
and I think that
people
remember
definitely don't.
remember like, oh, he sent a rat to Margot Robbie, and they just didn't like him. There
Yeah.
was nothing leading up to that movie made me be like, oh, people are gonna like this, and then you find out they cut most of his stuff out. So that's why I don't really ever weigh in one way
Mm.
or the other, because I'm like, well, that is like 40% of a performance, and it
Yeah.
was cut together by a trailer house. So like I don't really know what to do with that. Whereas,
Yeah. Fair.
so it's not. So I mean, yeah, sure, there might be people that compare him to Ledger, but it's not really an apples to apples comparison. And I also think people just don't like Jared Leto, so it's also that. And then it's just like, well, fuck him.
Yeah, it's definitely not an apples to apples comparison. And people definitely don't like Leto, and Leto's performance is definitely more. Uh, there was a lot more Goyer or whoever Ayer, sorry, Ayer influence
No,
from
Ayer,
the
yeah.
visual side. from the visual side of things that made a lot of people be like, oh, that's
Mhm.
really not what. So you're right to say that it's not something that can be justly compared. However, to your point of the Joker and all this kind of stuff, whether it be a comic book role or not, it's just objectively this was a performance that you can say that someone sunk themselves into. This
Mhm.
was something that someone cared about, took seriously, and really, really, really gave everything to. So it's objectively a great performance from that regard. It's one of those things where whether or not you liked it, it demands respect of
Yeah,
the
I
character.
think what he's doing, like, because I would say his two most well respected, like, I know there's people that love him in 10 Things I Hate About You and probably A Knight's Tale, which, like, I'm not saying, oh, and that's the shit end of what he did, but I feel
Right.
like the two, like, really well respected things he did are Brokeback Mountain and this. And
Yes.
it's like, you can't tell me that you're like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Brokeback Mountain, or
Right.
even if you retroactively be like, oh yeah, that's the guy who played Joker. Like, those are two very distinct
Yes.
performances that show range and show,
Mhm.
like, who knows who he really is based on just those two examples.
Yeah, because I think Ledger, much like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, had, because they entered acting at such young points of their life, and because they were the roles that they took on, it was very easy for them to be recognized only for those roles, and they really had to do a conscious job of breaking out of that role type. And here is where you see Heath really, really establishing himself and on the upswing of being like, no, he's with this, as well as Brokeback, has definitely broken out of that mold of, I guess you could say, 90s teen rom-com actor.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
you can definitely say that for what he got famous for, even though like the stuff, the more local stuff he did acting in Australia was very, very, very good too. Like I remember watching this documentary about him, where they're talking about him being offered two roles for a drama in Australia, and he decided to go for the role that was like a closeted gay athlete instead
Hmm.
of the more popular role. And like his father speaking about like how he wanted to do the harder one. So he got famous for roles that we would be like, yeah, that's not something that we would is important to us in this discussion, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that love those movies, and I'm not taking anything away from it. But though these are movies that clearly he's like, nope, I'm recognizing the actor that I want to be, and this got me the visuals, this got me the attention. Like at least there's a fan base enough for it. But this is what he really wanted to do, and it's just so sad that he died, and that he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Because I really would have wanted to see where his career would have gone, the roles he would have taken, and what the things he would have done after that. I mean, would have absolutely been phenomenal.
If he was allowed to be, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I guess he's a white guy. Yeah, he would have been allowed to do what he wants.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, what did you think of Maggie Gyllenhaal as Rachel Dawes?
I don't like that character.
Yeah,
So
it's confirmed, right? Like, I just did not like. I used to think, oh, I didn't like it because it was Katie Holmes, but I'm like, nah, this is an actor I really like in Maggie Gyllenhaal, and she's still not saving it. I just don't.
yeah,
She's just written in such a like, and I get it. That is always a main complaint about Nolan movies is are the female characters are written either as like just complete hindrances
yes,
or just like so hollowly that you're just like I you might as well just not have been here. Like,
yeah. This is definitely an empty performance. I mean, and
well,
this
I don't know if it's an empty before. I don't know
it's
what
not
she
an
can do with it. Other like she's doing a great job with what they've given, and that's how I know I just don't like the character. Is that I'm
yes,
like,
you're absolutely.
I don't not believe what she's doing. I feel like this is the best you can do with what you've been given.
I think this is a situation where there's a lot of things about this character that I just don't like. but there's also things about this character, the way she's written in this movie, that I just don't like. So here's the one thing. I don't believe, and I have to be careful of the words I'm choosing here, and please respect the fact that I may not find the right words because I'm working out the thoughts out loud. But the idea of, like, I don't believe that Maggie Gyllenhaal provides that level of beauty that they build up in this movie. You know what I mean? Like the idea of, like, Joker is like, oh, you are beautiful, like all this kind of stuff, and they're really building up that level of beauty. I just don't see it, and like it's there's Nolan doesn't really care, hasn't put equal amounts of thought into this character. It's quite clear, and it's probably one of the weaker performances, if not the weakest, in the whole movie. And the reason why I just haven't cared enough to think about that, because I just didn't want to rank like, oh, she's the worst part of this movie. She's definitely a step up from Katie Holmes, but the attractiveness aspect, how they portray her in the movie, it just doesn't. I don't believe it. But she plays the emotion well, and the range of her acting is fantastic. That's not being questioned. It's just, I think she was an actress that just didn't work within this film.
I mean, continue. I don't really understand your point. I never saw her as someone who is supposed to be this beautiful. Like, Joker says it, but it's very clear to me that what everyone who likes her is for her personality.
Right. But even then, the personality is hollow. I just think, like.
But I guess that's why I didn't really understand why you picked up on the beauty part and not her personality.
The beauty part and the personality, right? That's why I started off with saying I don't like this character, because I'm like, this character doesn't have the personality. I don't see it. I don't see why Bruce would be so infatuated with her, to be like the idea of, like, her resembling the life of normalcy or whatever is I just don't believe that storyline. I don't believe that he really wants that, or not really wants that, but is just really has that in his mindset. I don't know.
That's why I wanted you to keep talking, because I didn't really it didn't really seem important to me whether or not she was good looking. I think what's important and why her character fails is because her personality doesn't live up to how it's been built up for people. So I said this when we did Batman Begins, I do not understand what his, like, sure, in Batman Begins, because he just comes back and he sees her again, and you're like, all right, like, I get it. But it feels like he should be over that by now, because she's clearly made a decision about how she wants to live her life, and that doesn't include being with you. I know there's the line of, like, oh yeah, I did say that like we'd be together if you didn't need to be Batman, but, like, I read the room, like, aren't you Batman? Like, she's obviously not gonna get with you if you're being Batman. She doesn't respect anything about you realistically. You're just her old friend, and it's whatever. And then at least with the Harvey Dent thing, it's the same idea. She dated the other DA, and it was like her tenacity for Lloyd, and you can see there's multiple times in the movie where she helps him when they're like they work together on the legal stuff, and I understand that relationship. But for me to believe that Batman's still, like, into her, I'm like, you got to give me something, like some kind of chemistry. But that's what I'm saying. I didn't, like, I just, as you said, you were trying to think about it out loud, but I do think that the issue is more her personality and less her looks.
Yes. So to clarify, what to me, and this is very, very simplistic, my thought process here, is that if these two men are fawning after her.
To be fair, I don't see that Harvey is fawning after her. Harvey is in a relationship with her.
So, and this is so hard because I'm like, I just don't see it. I just don't see why these two people would be so like, oh, she's this everything person, because the personality is not there. And when the personality is not there, it's just like, where is the attraction then?
So you don't see that her and Harvey work well together? I
see what I see is two people respecting the hell out of Rachel, but not actually feeling affection towards Rachel.
But I don't think you're engaging in what Harvey and Rachel have. I think you're looking at this as a love triangle, but you're not actually seeing the actual relationship between Rachel.
The relationship I see between them is more professional than anything else. It really is. It's just like
But
everything.
those are two people that really care about their professions, so that makes sense to me.
Correct. Yeah, I get that, but what I'm saying is just like, and maybe it's because it's because everything in this movie happened so fast, and everything's just so crazy, and the anxiety aspect of this movie is so there that they're just like they're together and they're not questioning, they're not interested in dealing with their relationship at that point in time. They're just in a relationship, and they know that they know that there is that marriage aspect of everything of that. But it's a weird triangle. It really is to me.
Yeah, I don't agree, but I think that what I would pick up on is that there's still no reason for me to believe that Batman is still hung up on Rachel. I understand what Harvey Dent loves about Rachel, and I
Yes.
understand that that is someone who, kind of like Bruce, isn't really giving him guff about his two-sidedness.
Yeah.
She's there to challenge him and make him feel like he can do better. But she's not like, I don't trust you, Harvey, because of the whole back in the day, your past, and you were Two-Face. So I understand the appeal of Rachel to him, in addition to her being very good at what she does. The movie doesn't give me any reason to believe she isn't. And like the way they connect Rico together when they're interrogating Lau, the way she helps him with the affidavit when they're in court together, the movie gives me times to be like, they work well as a team. I can understand the attraction if you're spending all those hours together. And then we're also not watching them start a relationship. We're watching them at that moment where Harvey thinks it's a smart enough idea to introduce the idea of let's get married.
Right. So my issue with it is
we're not in the honeymoon phase of that aspect of a relationship.
No, I'm not saying that we're in the honeymoon phase. What I'm trying to get at is the idea of, I don't think, it's a very weird interaction to me between the three of them.
I'm saying forget about the three of them. Let's just focus on Rachel and Harvey. And the only reason I'm pushing that is because we can agree there's no point in
the Batman
Bruce
stuff
wanting to be with Rachel, and there's nothing that lets me think Rachel wants to be with Bruce. So we can just agree on that. But what I'm saying is, I do think that you're missing the point that like Harvey and Rachel are good together.
Okay, they're a good team together, but here's how I see the relationship between them is the idea that Harvey definitely wants her, but she is in a position where she's like, okay. And there's not much affection there. Maybe that's that's where the personality issue comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he almost gets like killed in court. She witnesses that, and she just jumps immediately into the next thing. And he even goes like, "I'm okay, by the way." And then she's like, just jokes about it. It's like, "Hey, if someone's not trying to kill you, then you're doing a bad job." And I'm just like, that aspect of that personality is just like, but she's not loving. She's not really.
I think she's loving when it comes down to it, and they are on the phone together before they die.
Yes,
I think in that moment, what is trying to be conveyed is that she's not worried about him being killed. She's excited at how good he is at his job, and she's like, "This is great! Like, can you believe how well you've done? That this is where you're at right now. That they're trying to take you down."
That makes her kind of seem just selfish. In regards to the idea of like, oh, I don't love you as a person. I love what you're achieving or whatever it is. It's just like it's not.
I would ask this: what would it be an organic thing if you just came from court? Would it then be appropriate to be like, and now let's talk about how much I love you as a person? Wouldn't it just be like, we were just in court, I am now talking about what's germane to what we just went through?
I would appreciate some sort of affection between the two. As if she didn't.
I think that's you asking for something from the movie that's not really planning like what is happening in
that's
the
fair,
plot.
But that's what I'm saying is I don't understand.
I'm saying you're asking for it at a time that it wouldn't make sense.
I don't know.
What you're doing is forcing the woman to be the like support system for the guy in that moment.
No, I'm not forcing anything. I'm just saying that neither one of them like did the hug thing. Like it was just like. He was like, "Hey, I'm fine, by the way." It's just neither one of them had that traditional. I don't like. They're a good partnership. I will 100% say that.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm looking for a different.
But that
I'm
would
not.
come at a different
Yeah.
scene, is what I'm trying to get at. You're picking on this one scene. There's a 2.5 hour movie. So you're picking on this 10 seconds that I'm telling you it makes no sense to do that other than to appease someone in the audience who's like, oh, I guess they love each other now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You're forcing the woman who is a professional just as much as he is to
Mm.
stop being professional in that moment and be like, I love you,
No,
honey.
I just feel like
Because there
in that
is
one scene,
moments
you're
where
right
she,
on
like,
saying
if you're
that.
saying like she like the way she comes at Bruce, because she's wrong about Bruce Wayne when she goes, Harvey's not smart, like Harvey doesn't know you well enough to know when you're making fun of him, but I do. She's being protective of the
She
love in
is.
her life, and she's
Absolutely.
missing the fact that Bruce is actually being genuine and likes her thing. I think there needs to be more moments like that, but I don't think that moment you're talking about,
That
because
moment. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about that moment anymore. But let's talk about the scene in the the restaurant where they have the four of them sit together and dine and they have that conversation. There is affection there. And that's the kind of affection I'm looking for, where Harvey is like, well, if I was, someone would notice I'm gone, and he reaches over her hand, grabs it, and like there's it's so clear that he's so much more loving, and that she kind of gives this kind of like reaction that's cold, and I'm like, oh,
but she was
this is.
cold in the first movie.
I know, and that's what the thing is. Like, I just don't know how.
I understand what you're saying. She is
Yeah,
not a loving character, but that doesn't make it flawed. That just is that now
no,
you have to realize that she's not a loving person.
no.
Like, that's not how she conveys love.
What I'm just saying is I'm not seeing where there's that pull towards her, aside from I respect the hell of what out of what this person does.
Do you need
Like that,
more than that?
I was looking
Again,
for more.
if you respect that
Yeah,
person genuinely, then you already know what their love language is and you're not looking for them to do it a different way. You're putting your stuff on a character who's already in a
yeah.
relationship he likes.
Yeah, I guess that just. I guess respect, a professionalism thing just never occurred to me as a love language, but I guess
But
sure. If it's
again, you're picking that one scene. What I'm saying is there is enough to go on in terms of how much time they must spend together professionally that I understand how they would be good relationship wise. We're also not dealing with a romantic drama or a romantic comedy. We're dealing with a comic book movie. So again, I think what we said at the top is we're now trying to nitpick something.
I'm definitely nitpicking. It's just
And all I'm saying is
all I'll
we can
say.
agree that there's no reason for Batman to be hung up on Rachel. So yes, I agree with you there.
Yeah,
Because
I feel
all the
like
things you're complaining about make sense to me for Batman. Because
yes,
again, this is a Batman centered movie. But if you are taking time away from the movie to like appease your need for like some reason why like she's loving towards Harvey, I think like, okay, sure. But I also feel like you're slowing the movie down.
well, I would agree with that. Which I ultimately this is where everything what I'm saying ultimately starts unraveling. It's so to me is I it comes back to the first point. I just don't care for that character.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
just it's fine.
And so Maggie
And
Gyllenhaal
it
fights.
comes down to how Chris Nolan wrote her. Like
Yes.
that is the problem. It's I
Mhm.
don't think there's a problem with how she's portraying what she's
No.
given. I
Yes.
think that like the main conceit of Batman, because kind of like the Raimi Spider-Man things, like a lot of it seems to be a lot of what the hero in these movies is doing is centered around his girlfriend. It's like,
Mhm.
well, we start Dark Knight Rises with he gave up for 8 years because Rachel died, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
really?
I mean,
Okay.
let's
And
be
then like,
perfectly honest here. If we're analyzing the psychological trauma that Bruce Wayne experienced as a kid, of course he'd have abandonment issues, and that could really speak towards this much, much more. And now I feel like a jerk because I'm not being sensitive towards his trauma as a childhood, his childhood trauma. But to me, I'm like the idea of like whether or not he should have gotten over it. I'm not going to project that onto
no,
Bruce's
I'm not
character.
saying he, but
But
I think what we both like about Batman is that he has those issues, but he's still working to make the world a better place. That
correct, yes,
that if he was going to be upset about something, it would be the initial loss of his parents, but it's just that loss that forced him to become Batman. So it's weird to
yes,
then be like, and then he lost the woman that like kind of said she was going to be with you, but never really showed you any signs that she was going to be with you.
Yeah.
You lost her. And so does that mean if she had, like, if he read that note and she was like, well, yeah, I'm just going to be with Harvey, then he would have been like, oh, I'm done Batman now.
Yeah. I'm kind of convinced that, and this kind of goes back to a little bit of dialogue that the Joker had, where he's like, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I wouldn't know what to do if I caught it. I feel like that's a very, very interesting way to look at Batman or Bruce Wayne's relationship with Rachel. Is the idea, like, if he actually got together with Rachel, I'm not even sure or convinced he would know what to do in that relationship.
No, he wouldn't know what to do because he is Batman. That is what I like about Bruce Wayne. Like, Bruce Wayne is Batman. There's no like giving it up. But that isn't what Nolan was trying to do. Nolan was like, no, he's never gonna be Batman forever. It's set up in the beginning, and this movie is him thinking, oh, I can do it and it really makes it seem like, oh, I am doing this because now I can be with Rachel.
Mhm.
Yes, there is the like altruistic, like, but and now things are better for Gotham because they have Harvey Dent instead. But we are also pointing out that he's kind of missing a lot of red flags with Harvey Dent in this pursuit of like, but no, it's him. He can do it, and then I can be with Rachel, and then we'll all be fine.
Oh, well, we've definitely established the fact that Bruce is definitely looking onto Harvey with a naive, albeit ignorant lens, with how he's like, oh yeah, I'm ignoring these things, or not aware of, or purposely not aware of. But he's definitely ignoring those things, being like, no. We can spin him in the public eye as a legitimate white knight, protector of Gotham, and all that kind of stuff. We can definitely spin it, and it's inspiring all this and all that kind of stuff. But like, realistically, he's definitely not looking at the red flags that Harvey is raising for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Rachel is not great, but
yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal is.
Yeah,
that's what I will say, because I do like Resident Evil.
It's a character that I feel like, again, every complaint you had about her with Harvey, I'm like, it seems like more that should have been for Bruce. Is that
yes,
spend time showing me that she cares about Bruce, so that I believe that he genuinely thinks that they'll be together if he stops being Batman. Because the more time you spend showing me that she cares about Harvey, the more time I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, she's not gonna ever be with Batman.
Right. I feel like you've hit the hit. Yeah, you're definitely connecting with something here, because it's one of those things where I'm looking at and I just kind of think, hey, well, this is a situation where I don't see how she's giving any kind of affection towards Bruce, and Bruce building up something that I don't see there.
Yeah. It said in the first movie, she's basically rejecting all of the stuff that he wants to do. And it's like, okay, I get you still are like, I could still win her over. Like, we're old friends. But it's like, by this point where she's with someone else, and I'm not saying like, oh, she's someone else's property, but I'm like, you should now respect that she has moved on. Like, this is not like a, oh, I'm doing this to keep up appearances until you're ready to not be Batman. It's like, no, she moved on, man. Like, she is with someone else. She has emotionally departed that aspect of your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so then to never have her, like, they kiss, and I'm like, I guess so. But I still don't think that's like I mean, it's a romantic kiss for him, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's something she's like necessarily into.
You're talking
but that's a function of the story, not, I don't mean that as like the characters or the actors missed a trick there. I mean that like the story just wants to remind you like, hey, he still wants to be with her, so here's a kiss.
When you say the kiss, are you referring to the kiss that he gives, that they have in Batman Begins?
No, the kiss they have in this one. He kisses her when I want to say people think Commissioner Gordon's dead, because she has to go to, because Harvey's like, where can you go that's safe? And she's like, I can go to Bruce. And then that's when
you're talking about Harvey. I thought you were talking about like she kissed Bruce in this.
Yeah, she kisses Bruce. They're like, he's like, remember you said we'd be together. She's like, oh, you can't expect me to like, and then he's like, no, it's gonna happen. Right. And then they kiss.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was not that was not a kiss of like, oh, good, like this is, yay, that's coming. It was like, oh dear, I'm gonna let you down right now. It's
I
like,
mean, maybe, but I do think that that was just a poorly timed kiss in the script. I think that like that was an instance of like, well, we need to show, or sorry, yeah, we need to tell rather than show. And in this case, telling is a kiss scene. It's like, no, they like each other.
right,
It's, and I'm like, I just don't feel like you've done the legwork to make me believe
yeah,
that she likes him. I understand that he likes her, mostly because you're telling me he does.
yeah. I feel like
I
this
don't
movie
know
had
that Batman likes anyone, but
yeah,
he
I feel
seems
like
to have
this
the same chemistry with everybody. But
yeah,
like,
the
he definitely, it's definitely like, I don't think she likes him, and I never thought she liked him, and it's weird.
yeah, to me it was. I think the reason why between the three of them doesn't work very well is because I'm never convinced that she has him entertained as a real choice. You know what I mean? I don't think she's ever really entertaining the idea of like, oh, I'm going to choose Bruce over Harvey. I don't think that's ever in consideration there. Um, I think she's conflicted and doesn't know how to tell Bruce that, which is why she wrote the letter or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think throughout this whole movie, she's finding a way to be like convincing herself that Bruce is always going to be Batman no matter what. And then that she needs to move on and that she's moving on with Harvey. And that
But
she loves
yeah,
her. Like it's just one of those things where she's definitely working through a lot in this movie. But the movie doesn't do a good enough job of convincing me that she's or showing me that the work is being done. You know what I mean? It's very hard to show like that kind of stuff. But
well, that's because that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not written in a way that
yeah,
allows you to do that. And again, I don't know that it's the movie to really focus on that.
you're
But
absolutely right. I wouldn't want it to because I would slow
there's
down everything.
there's stuff
Um,
that could have worked, and that's why I feel like I know that I like Maggie Gyllenhaal, because she's even given you enough to like grasp at straws at with like, yeah, I guess she's working through some stuff where,
yeah,
and I'm not even saying Katie Holmes couldn't do it. I'm just saying I can see how the way this is written, you might not even get that out of it from a different performance.
right, right. Yeah, it's. Whew. Yeah, this character is definitely a talking point. Because it's just the character itself doesn't work for me. Therefore,
Mhm.
a lot of what this character's role in this movie doesn't work for me. Especially with the Bruce stuff. Like I'm just not like it's one of those things where that scene that I'm remembering it now where she does kiss him. I the way I saw that scene playing out now, or at least the way I remember it, is the idea of like I basically Bruce being like, "I love you, we can have that future together," and then her being like, "I'm not going to say anything to lead him
Mhm.
on," and the only good response is to just kiss him, and so
Yeah.
the kiss ends up being like, "Oh, like I'm letting you down softly," kind of thing, and he's really not understanding that
Yeah, and I
whatsoever.
think that comes down to choices of an actor, because you could have an actor that was like, I guess we do love each other, so I'm kissing him, and like there is stuff you can do non-verbally that
Yes,
makes it seem different than what you've explained. I agree with you that that's what's happening, but that's why I'm saying she did the best she could with this poorly written character.
I agree. Yes. Yeah, and that's why like these are the two biggest flaws of this movie is her writing and the scene of the party, the
Him
fun.
jumping out the window, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I love Alfred. He's great. He's
Oh,
good.
he's
He did a
fantastic.
great job. Lucius is good. Like this time around, I'm like, man, they really gave like Lucius some cool like Bond moments, like when he goes to Low Towers and he's just like, already got my phone. I'm like, good for you, Lucius.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I
there's a
think
lot of
Lucius and
really cool stuff in this movie. I
and
really
obviously I'm always down for that Commissioner Gordon scene where he talks to his son about how he got to save Batman today. Like
yeah.
I'll always think that's an amazing moment.
I love one of my favorite scenes about this movie is the Lucius Fox scene where I forget the guy that's trying to blackmail Bruce,
Right,
but like
Reese.
Reese.
Yeah, everyone
The
thought he
scene,
was the Riddler.
yeah, the scene I loved the most is the idea of like Reese being like, "You can't tell me you didn't recognize," and therefore is like, "Oh,
Hmm.
I'm gonna like this is my blackmail thing," and then immediately he just launches into the best explanation of like, "Do you think would you go to the cops with this information? This is a billionaire guy that's powerful influence all over the world that beats people up, and you're accusing him of beating people up at nighttime." and you think that blackmail is the best way to go about this.
Mhm.
There's a reason why I gave him everything, is because I'm going to keep my job, my fucking lifestyle, not get beat up or whatever. I already know how to play this game, and you want to do this, good luck with that. I think that scene is so brilliant to so many different aspects of it, but it also shows something very, very, very interesting. And this is what I want to get your take on with that thing. Whether or not that's a good, like, I saw that scene playing out very, very differently. This is a new gem in that scene of like, oh, this is white privilege. Basically, where the Reese guy, he goes like, yeah, nothing's going to happen to me because I have this information. That's what's going to protect me. And then Fox being like, no. You can have all the information. You can be right. You can do all those things. But the system rigged against you. Like, do you think that is, I'm now viewing that as like, oh, this is a good example of white privilege, but I don't think Nolan wanted to display it that way. But
I don't think that's what is happening in the scene.
You know, well,
I don't think he's talking about the systemic reasons why he won't be able to get that across. I think what he's saying is he's pointing out the not hypocrisy. He's pointing out the flawed logic of, I know that you are working for someone that beats people up to keep things a certain way. So now I'm going to try and change that. What he's saying is like, if you believe what you're saying, then it just means you're going to get beat up. It means you're going to be shut down.
So I'm not wording it properly from my end. What I'm saying is the new gem that I discovered is like his idea of being like not even considering the outcomes. He's just like, oh, I'm just going to succeed. It's just like his.
But I guess what I'm saying is what's wrong about that is if you were right and it was about white privilege, then he would have succeeded.
Correct. But no, the idea of like
but he doesn't.
No, he just thinks it's going to succeed, is like the idea of the privilege. That's where the privilege stops, right?
But
like,
what I would say is white privilege isn't just a white person being like, I can get away with this. It's the fact that they don't even have to think that way, and they will get away with it.
So, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's the fact that the system is set up for them.
Right.
So then, if he were to come to his black boss and be like, I got you, he would have won if this was about white supremacy. What I think, or not, I still call it white supremacy, but white privilege. What I'm saying is the scene is just, I'm going to make you look dumb now and I'm going to make you doubt yourself. So if what you're saying is true, it's not going to work out for you. But now that I've planted that seed of doubt, you're probably not going to go through it. He does go through with it and it doesn't work out for him. But the idea is just calling his bluff. It's not some like deconstruction of the power systems that be.
No, you're absolutely right. It's that definitely glad I got to work through that thought. But it was a nice little like, I love that scene so much because it's just like so.
It's a great scene, but like, it is more Lucius Fox playing poker with him.
Correct.
Just like, sure, okay, go for it then.
Yeah,
he's like, if you're right, it's just not going to work out for you. So maybe just don't do anything. But if you do, just remember, like, this is what you think is the case, and that makes no sense that you would ever get away with it if that was true.
Yeah, it's that's one of my favorite Lucius Fox scenes for sure. For sure, that's one of my favorite Lucius Fox scenes here.
Yeah, that is great. I like in the first movie where he tells him like what he did to counteract the toxin, and Bruce Wayne's like, am I supposed to know what that means? He's like, no, I just wanted to sound impressive. Like, I just wanted you to be impressed with all the work I did.
Yeah, I just wanted you to know how hard it was. It's so funny. There's a lot of good, genuinely amazing Lucius Fox scenes there. It's so good.
So did we miss anybody? Probably not. I feel like that's everyone in the movie.
I feel like that is everyone.
Everyone's great, except, and I mean this is in terms of how they're written, except for Rachel.
Yes.
But Maggie Gyllenhaal tried her best. There's no helping that character.
It's easiest to say she's the weakest character. It's not the weakest
because she's got like this. Yeah. She's got this fatal flaw, which is we're supposed to believe that she wants to be with Batman, Batman wants to be with her, and then no effort is put into making that the case.
Mhm.
It's just you're just supposed to take their word for it.
Right.
And then a bunch of problems trickle down from that. But that is the main issue.
Correct.
Is if you believed that like there is some kind of star-crossed lover they're meant to be, but they just can't get it together thing, you probably forgive a lot more stuff.
I agree. I would agree. I would think that because the Batman Begins in itself doesn't do a good enough job of convincing me that there's really love there.
No, I feel like she hates him.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's
she
just
like wholeheartedly rejects who he really is.
Yes, and then toward the end, she shows him affection. And is like, "Oh, I misjudged you," and that's it.
No, but
Like-
she's just like, oh, this is this is what I mean by the fatal flaw. Like, I know this is a different fatal flaw, but it's like, oh, I misjudged you. Yeah, like being Batman is a good idea, but I'll only be with you if you're not Batman. But you are Batman, so and it's like, okay, well then I guess that just means you're never gonna be with it because like what you're saying is Batman is who you really are. So put that mask back on and be Bruce Wayne, and maybe I'll be with you.
Yeah, it's a situation where two people are not compatible, and one person is definitely working harder to make it work than the other person is.
I guess I could just read it as she already let him down in the first movie, and he's just really not getting the signals. But I don't feel like that's how the movies play out. But maybe if I were to give him that credit, is she rejected him in the first movie, and he just didn't get the hint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's god, yeah. That it's just you're right. That's the weakest point of this movie is that relationship and that character.
It adversely affects the third movie.
Yep, it does greatly.
All right,
we'll get there.
So you do want to do Dark Knight Rises?
Yes, I do. I do. It's so I find that movie so entertaining.
I do not.
It's an entertaining movie.
It is not.
I get why you don't like it. I get all those things. And I'm not looking to convince you otherwise. I'm looking at just to me, it's such a fun movie to watch. And just once I turn my brain off, I enjoy that movie significantly more.
To be clear, I don't think it's a horrible movie. I just enjoy making fun of it.
Yes.
But I do not like it. I don't like it. It's just, it's funnier to take like a more aggressive stance than I actually have on it.
I do love how meta that is, because I've known you and we've done this podcast for many, many years now, and the commitment to that.
Yeah, I'll never let go. I am fine saying what works about it, like I did earlier, but it's not a good. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good movie. All I can say is at least it finishes out the trilogy.
Yes,
like
I can't wait to talk to you more about that. So our listeners will have to wait for that because
it is a god awful film. All right, thank you very much. I really hate it. It's the worst. Okay, thank you very much for listening. No, we never even rated it.
We didn't rate this. All right, I'm doing 9.5 here.
I'm giving it a 10. I should have given Hellboy a 10, by the way. The more I thought about it, I was like, no, I just really like that movie. Why didn't I not give it a 10? But yeah, Dark Knight, I'm giving a 10.
Hellboy reboot?
Of course not Hellboy reboot.
Okay, I wanted to just clarify.
We didn't. No, there's no chance I'm giving that a 10.
I'm sorry, I'm just feeling goofy right now. So
yeah, no. I'm not changing my mark for Hellboy, which I don't remember, but I am saying that Dark Knight is a 10 for me. I don't care about all those flaws. The overall emotional highs for me will never be erased. It's great.
There's those two flaws to me are enough to give it the 0.5, a small tick. But I mean, like that's fine. That's still fair. Like otherwise perfect.
Whatever you want to give it.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that. I'm giving it a 10.
I will say that I have never seen another movie that has so many layers of everything put together so well. And so just like aside from those two flaws,
I would say Get Out is another one that I feel like has so many layers pieced together very well.
You're absolutely right. I was sorry when I said movie, I was just thinking comic book movie.
Mm.
Yeah, sorry, but Get Out definitely enters that realm of like so many layers of everything put together in such a beautiful way. This, from a comic book movie standpoint, this to me is the closest to perfection that I've seen from a comic book movie to date. I think.
Yeah, I feel like Black Panther has that too, but that's more connecting real world stuff and
Yes.
discussions. But I would say that I know what you mean though, in terms of how every piece leads to this conclusion, or and everything is so interweaved.
Yeah,
I get what you mean. I gave it a 10, so I get what you mean for sure.
Going back to the clock analogy, that is, I've never seen another comic book film function as precisely as this one.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. That was our episode of Dark Knight that I was dreading, but it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. I thought we would just be like, it was good. Bye. So that's good. And if that's good, then that means you are going to like other podcasts on the That Shelf Podcast Network, which we are a part of, such as Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Nightmares, What a Great Theme Song, and more. So please head on over to thatshelf.com and check out those podcasts. There's more, as I said. And if you would like to hear older episodes of Spoiled Rotten, go to tdferything.com/spoiledrotten. Our Twitter is @TDFSpoiled. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We have social media. You can find them at all the places I've just mentioned. And please hit us up on your podcatcher of choice. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, I think Amazon Music now, and more. So rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Excellent. How about you, Ben? You have anything to add?
No, that's the outro is pretty much you got that thing. It's great. No, I just wishing everyone a safe, healthy life right now.
Please stay safe.
Yep.
I mean, who knows what's going to happen by the time this episode comes out? Like,
if
that is even relevant information, or if this will even be out. But let's just hope that it will be.
What I'm going to say, do what your most local healthcare provider unit person is saying in regards to pandemics or whatever, and definitely in California, flee those wildfires if they're still firing. Like, just, everyone just be safe, hopefully.
Yes, please. Yeah,
that's it.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.